Oh my gosh.
Good afternoon. All right, so we're using the mic just because we are going to be recording this and sharing it with those that aren't able to be with us this afternoon. We're still linked to the speaker, right? Mm-hmm. So thank you all. Hope you all are having a good afternoon. This is our second part of our series of the Pivot Leader Training. And raise your hands, who's here the first training? 2 of us, perfect. Half of the room is here, great. So today, we're gonna just go through the guidelines and objectives of our training. So I apologize, we didn't start on time. However, we are going to try our best to get you out of here at a reasonable time. Please silence your mobile phones. We are encouraging participation. We definitely want to hear from you and your insights. Be supportive and judgmental. Listen to what others have to share. Do not interrupt the speaker. Focus on being solution-oriented, and the facilitator moderator will be during the conversation to keep the focus on the main agenda. So today, myself, Frank Bejarano, and Alyssa Ventura, along with Irma from Wilshire Square, are going to be presenting today's topics. Our agenda includes an icebreaker activity. We're going to hear from, like I said, from Irma, your neighborhood association leader. We're going to provide some neighborhood initiatives and environmental services support updates. And then we're going to close our session with some next steps and future topics, and then we're going to close.
Great, hi everyone. So the icebreaker that we're going to do tonight is 2 truths and 1 lie. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. So basically, you're going to come up with 2 truths about yourself and 1 lie. So I don't know if you guys want to write it down. And then we're going to go around. We'll give you guys a few minutes, and then we'll go around, and each one of you are going to state your 2 truths and 1 lie. And then everyone in the room is going to decide which one is the lie based on the statements that you stated. So yeah, so we'll give you a few minutes to kind of think through what you guys want to come up with, and then we'll go around and present. We'll have you participate too.
Okay, 2 truths and 1 lie.
Yes.
Okay, I've been to Europe.
So don't tell us which ones are true. Or
No.
not. Okay.
I spent a whole day with Ringo Starr and had dinner with his family. And I had a lovely time with the Queen of Nepal.
Oh. Nice.
Wait a minute. Oh yeah, okay. I do have one there.
Okay. So we'll give them a bit more time, and then we'll.
Oh, we have to write them down?
You don't have to, but I suggested it. So yeah, we'll give them a few minutes, and when they have theirs, we'll go back to yours, and they'll have to decide which one's the lie. All right, are you guys ready? Do you want to? So Eva's going to start off. Do you guys want to re-listen to what she mentioned? Yeah, you can start off.
So do I start explaining or do they guess?
I explained the 3 again, and then they have to decide.
I've been to Europe. I spent the whole day with Ringo Starr and had dinner with him and his family. And I spent an afternoon with the Queen of Nepal.
All right, so you guys have to decide which one of Irma's statements you believe is a lie.
Ringo Starr, that's that.
All right, so Carl says Ringo Starr. Judy as well. Sue? What are you gonna start? Okay. You know which one?
I've never been to Europe. I used to be a tour guide at Disneyland, spend a whole day with Ringo Starr, spend a whole day with the Queen of Nepal.
Oh my God, that's
Yes,
amazing.
and Helen Reddy, and John Thomas, and the Prime Minister of Brazil, and the Queen of Spain. And when you're there for almost 10 years, you do things like that. And it's a lovely experience.
Wow.
So yes, I did spend, but the one thing he said, I was his tour guide, guest relations, please do not ask me about the meals. And it's like at music royalty history. I was in my 20s, so you know I was going like, oh, so I could not. I just had to be very proper and very, so yes, that is the truth.
That's
There you
amazing.
go.
That's awesome. Wow.
And you know what, my sister-in-law's been at Disneyland for over 20 years. So I would have guessed, if I would have thought about Disneyland.
Yeah.
Because she always tells me, I can't tell you now, but.
Oh, and Dolly Parton. Oh my gosh. I have anecdotes about her. She's a sweetheart, sweetheart, but funny. And especially when you're a tour guide,
Yeah, she doesn't carry it, or is.
still you bump into them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So who wants to go next? All right.
So I was an equestrian and I was training for the Olympics when I was injured. I was able to have lunch with the Wrigley heiress, one of the Wrigley heiresses. And I have worked on a motorcycle and a car.
Wow. Okay. All right. So what do you guys think? Which one of Sue's wanted to align?
Yes, I do that.
I don't know. Equestrian training for the Olympics. And that I had lunch with Wrigley heiress and that I had worked on a motorcycle.
Right, so one Wrigley is
Motorcycle and a car.
motorcycles.
Oh,
Oh, wow, you guys are all over the place.
Yeah, my sister was training for the Olympics. She was injured. And so my sister's friend was Carlisle Wrigley. And they came over when my sister had her first child. She and her husband, they were getting married. And then I have my husband had me work on his motorcycle because I have two hands and my hands would fit in there. And then I have an old, I have 69 Chevy number.
God. That's amazing. Wow.
So the equestrian was your sister, not you.
Yep, I had to think of. Yeah, she got her foot stamped.
Yeah. Because I think if you're in equestrian, bumping into people like that would be very common. So those two had to be connected. That was my default deduction. Because they're kind of connected, and they are.
So, well, she
So my guess was right.
my sister's husband was a doctor in Wrigley, and Carlisle's future husband was a doctor. They worked together. And that's how I met her. I was living with my sister.
Thank you, Sue, for sharing. Yeah, that was great. Great facts. All right, Carl.
Okay. I was born in Detroit. Very personal friends called me the Polish mechanic. Polish mechanic. And I played semi-pro.
Okay. All right, what do you guys think?
I don't mind. So we're looking for the line.
Yeah, you're looking for the light.
So
So
just say Polish mechanic.
all right, two Polish mechanics.
And then what's the other one? The last one?
Played pro semi-pro.
If you have all your teeth.
I'm trying to recall our conversations. I know you're Detroit, that I know, because you and Ricky connect that one, so that's the truth. Were you a mechanic? Most guys were in that, in our generation growing up, everybody was a mechanic, so I would say that's the last one. That's the last one.
Last one, correct. I did not, I played, I get some Canadian teams, but I never was officially semi-pro. And the Polish mechanic, I had my a friend of mine, co-opted to have two vehicles to a day, one day to report. And so I went out, his radio died, the car stopped. So he called me, I rushed over there, really to the house. So that was the bike part of the deal. So now I'm going to show you. So what we do now is be the voice we can. I'm 20 years old, so I just crazy and I just step aside to the door and stand. Those ice cream on the start.
There was a short summer.
And there's a wire that came through the firewall, took 4 weeks to find. I can't. We do black tape and so on. So I was like, this really, we've got a quiet place. She did. So it was good.
Oh, that's great. All right, thank you, Carl. That was great. All right, Judy, so your turn.
I didn't, I wish I was there. I was born in Michigan and I don't.
Okay. Great, so do you see?
Yeah.
Only child.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's my sister, but I'm not one of 6.
Okay, fun. All right, awesome. Good job, you guys. And you got to learn a little bit about each other, so that was great. And I'm gonna hand it back to Frank.
Thank you. So we are actually going to review the chain objectives, which are actually very similar to the ones that we had in the previous. Today we're going to look into have an interactive through training. That's why we invited Irma to share with us today. We're looking to strengthen the cohesion and networking across neighborhood leaders, here specifically in the South Coast section of the city. We're looking to foster learning between city staff, neighborhood initiatives, services. Who here knows that there's been a transition within our office as of July 1st?
There has been a what? I can't-
A transition with our name. So originally we were Neighborhood Initiatives Program. We are now the Neighborhood Initiatives and Environmental Services Team.
But
Yeah,
I think that you were in transition of
Yeah.
adding more things.
we are, yeah, exactly. We're in transition, and so we're currently drafting our framework, and we're going to be sharing more information with everyone and looking to hopefully provide an update at one of the upcoming public meetings. And we're going to looking to offer future training sessions that are citywide. So we're really building from all of your expertise by providing these trainings with you and getting your feedback. We're going to be building up our training series for the future as we take this citywide. So I would like to welcome Irma, and she is going to walk us through a personal introduction, a brief history of the Wilshire Square neighborhood, and we're going to close up with the planning process for her summer concert.
You want to go up there?
You'd like, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, unless you want to sit, I can take a speaker, but
No, I can stand. I've been sitting all day, so it's okay. Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, long story. Let me try to summarize. I sent you my bio. The stuff that's not in my bio. I was born in Chicago and raised in Mexico. My dad died when I was 6. My mom's from Mexico, from the state of Zacatecas, very colonial, very Spanish. My grandfather was in the Mexican Revolution, so I have very, very deep and long roots in the family. I'm the eldest, the only girl. And so I have a whole bunch of male cousins. In order to make myself heard, and my mother's also an only girl, so with all these guys, you have to be strong. So that's where mine comes from. I danced for Clorigo. I was in the basketball team captain. Volleyball, declamación, which is when you say poetry and recite it. So public speaking, if I know what I'm talking about, it's not uncomfortable to me. And I think people have seen me. So that's some of that. My bio, they have it.
That's it, that's it.
Oh, that's a different, okay, that's, I'm in the financial services, I was arts and all of that and worked in Disneyland, but life made me practical. I am a multi-licensed in insurance, mortgages, real estate for 34 years. I went to UCI to work on my CFP and I'm currently working on my RICP, which is Retirement Income Certified Professional. I'm a math person. And my husband's a general contractor. So I look at things from a practical point of view. That's how I do this. So that's why I'm telling you this, because people need to know how my mind is wired, how I see things. Because when you try to put an activity together, you have to look at the financials, the logistics, the manpower, the volunteers, the workload involved, and the process. Doing contracts for so many years, that comes very comfortable to me. So got married in August of '79, and as a bride, we bought a house on Maple Street, and we lived there 11 years. In '88, I got my real estate license, and I walk into this house in Wilshire Square, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm home, because it's double the size with a big yard. It's a quarter-acre lot, and a little guest house for my in-laws, and a ton of space for my two boys. We have two boys. One is a Marine, one is a business owner. They both went to Calvary Chapel High School. My younger one is a wrestler. So I was trying to figure if we had that wrestling conversation. But he almost made it to the Olympics, actually. And now he does custom furniture business in San Diego. So that's my personal stuff. The history of Wilshire Square. When I moved into Wilshire Square, within a month, one of my neighbors came across the street to offer me a cup of coffee. I'm so, you give me a cup of coffee, I'm yours for life. That's basically how you bribe me. And I got invited to meet people in the neighborhood. And being a people person by this time, I've always been that way anyway. I just absolutely loved it. And I lived in Chicago until 8 years old. And you know, the architecture there is stunning. And then I lived in Zacatecas in buildings built in 1620, in 1700, in 1800. And my high school and elementary school were colonial buildings. They're absolutely stunning. I lived in art. So when I walked into Wilshire Square and we have a semblance of that, it's like, I have to protect this. And I loved it. And people who love those homes, we have a certain way of seeing things in life, I think. So our neighborhood was, I found out it was, the first house was built in 1915, and I think Jennifer Ships, I have that house. And the majority were built after World War I. And, you know, the boys coming back from Europe, see the Mediterranean, see the Spanish, see their tutors. And that's, there were two phases after World War II. And so we have a couple of, a lot of those arts and crafts, one or two art decors, a few line, and 1941. We have jacarandas on guard, see carrots that are dying, palm trees, sycamores on sycamore. So that's the style of our neighborhood. So one of the, Miguel Pulido, he was mayor when I moved in, and he used to come to all the neighborhood activities. And by the way, it wasn't 88, it was 87. There was the city who wanted to clear cut all the trees because apparently there were lawsuits in other cities about a big branch falling down and killing somebody. And they wanted to clear cut all the big carob trees. So we had beautiful trees that just went from side to side and made beautiful arches. And so the neighborhood collected money, the neighbors, and hired an arborist to study them and make sure that they were not sick or dying or danger. And that's how the association was built. Lisa Biss lived in our neighborhood, still lives in our neighborhood. And I think she and her husband, Miguel, and some of the neighbors formed this group, and the associations were born. So not only Wilshire Square, but that activity united the neighborhood. And I came in doing tours, parties. They had summer picnics. We would close the street. And that's how that was done. And actually, a little tidbit. I don't know if you know Suzanne Sandoval. She's been very active off and on. in the neighborhood. Also, she and her husband, we closed the street for their wedding. And they had the reception. Dr. Sandoval passed away. He used to be a professor at UCI for the family practice residents. And she worked at UCI as the, she was a counselor administrator for biosciences. So that's how, and so all of these activities, you start forming friendships. You start forming relationships that are now beyond the activity. And what Wilshire Square has done, and I've been observing, is that the most active we've been is when we do parties, and Hispanics being one of them. We get together on 2 occasions, a crisis or pachanga. You know what pachanga is? Those who did party. So why wait for a crisis? Because when you have crisis, what I've seen is people gather, they resolve the issue or not, and then they all go back home. Because the immigrant in the first generation, they're very, very family oriented. Very family oriented. And those who have backgrounds in that will know that. And that's common. It's when you get the second and third, then they're community oriented because now the family is getting bigger. So that's why sometimes I can't see that. So the activities of the concert, the movies in the square, the parade, the Easter brunch brings that neighborhood families together. And it's been going on for 24, 25 years. Now it's a tradition. And it's, you repeat the process. So that's how all our things are. And so the first thing is to know the process. Ricky helped me first with the parade. Before that, I've been involved with the association off and on the years since 1990. And when the kids were growing up, they were in sports. So I kind of stepped back, as most of us do. Then I come back because once you're an empty nester, you have to do something with this energy. It's to me, it's a blessing. My husband says it's a curse, but oh well. He's the opposite of me, total opposite. So that's where you start looking at the process and organizing. So to do the summer concert, first and foremost, it's always fun. You have to see what your budget is, what it's going to cost to do the showmobile. Years before, when Gerardo Moet was the director of Parks and Recs, there was a sponsorship, but that has changed. Now there is a cost, so we have to fundraise via where the council members, they have a budget for associations, plus we go to businesses. And I have no shame to ask the neighbor, if you get $25 once a year and everybody in the neighborhood, which is 700 houses, that covers all 4 events. It's not heavy if you share it. So I keep asking, I have no shame to ask for the neighborhood. And we finally are a 501c3. So that is very comfortable to ask for help. And it doesn't take much, and because people love their neighborhood, they say, very rarely do I get a no. They'll say later or mañana, but I won't get a no.
I've been on this imagine this showmobile used to be just as a neighborhood association. That's changed a few years ago. What do they charge?
Okay, still Parks and Recs, I have to call America Robledo. So I have my contacts. So the first thing I do is I start at the top. Again, I have no fear. I will call the mayor, Miguel or Vicente, whoever it is of that department, and say, where do I go? I don't start at the bottom. Sorry, I love you guys. I start at the top because then they'll send me, because sometimes it's so big, there's so many moving parts that sometimes staff doesn't know the pieces that are not common every day. So I just had to go through my and call everybody and thank you, por favor, and I found who has it, or council members when they, and then find out, because after COVID, everything changed, and I expect that, that's common. So once I found out who to contact, we reserved, I told them to pencil me in for next year, because every year it's the same date, the last Saturday in July, and then in January, I will confirm. At this time, we already know the budget, the contract about $7,000. So we have the budget for about $7,000 to run the whole concert. I'm always fundraising. Then we have to look at the band and what the budget is for the band. Over the years, we have a lot of bands we've contacted and that we like, some that do Motown or disco or Southern rock, country. So depending on the theme, and then if we don't have a band that we kind of have done them too much, we'll go on online. There's different sites where there's bands that play for the public, and we'll go and see them. First, we'll see them online, And then if we like their energy, we'll go and see them in Southern California as soon as possible, especially in the fall. We know we're not going to use the same band for next year. Then we'll go and kind of audition them so we can see how they're interacting. Because when you go to the summer concert, and have you been to the summer concert? I know you have, Carl. Anybody else? There's a lot of energy, and you want to have that same energy and family friendly, because some cater more to adults that have that the genres can cover the majority, not everybody, but the majority. Because there's no such thing. We're not going to get metal. We're not going to get rap. We're not going to get. That's a different genre. You want a family-friendly picnic that will have salsa and some funk and some disco and some. And then if it's themed, then we'll be like a Beach Boys if it's going to be a summer. So we'll look at that. And in other years, we've had invited people to dress up. Like we had a disco year, 50% dressed up with afros and bell bottoms, and it was a blast. And we even had a competition. We have a tabletop competition, and that has been going on for 24 years. Next year will be our 25th. After that, we have that would be January, February that we lock in the by March at the very latest the bands, because when they're good, and we look at the pricing too, they book themselves 6 months out. So you have to book the showmobile, the band ASAP. Then after that, we also look at volunteers because we have to pass flyers. We have to keep looking at the budget and the people that are going to help set up. We also reserve a special generator that goes with the showmobile. What else? Yes, we contact, although we have, because we have tables and chairs and canopies and a dance floor. Usually we've had the same vendor for many, many years, but he had a hernia surgery this year, so we had to scramble and we found somebody else a little bit higher. But this year, well, next year, we have to find the vendor, if it's the same person or what, to have the porta potties and all that. So we have to put that 2 or 3 months in advance, because again, they contract out for the summer. So you have to do that in advance. You can't do it last minute. Those things you have to secure in advance to set all those contracts and services and budgets. And then about 6 weeks before the event, then all the paperwork gets set into the police department, the fire department, and if we have any kind of food, to the health department. And I fill up all those paperwork. The one thing that takes time is door knocking. Again, I have no problem in English or in Spanish. And I go, and they all already know me. I go, we're partying again. I need your signature. It's okay. And people just sign. I've only had 2 or 3 people, same places all the time, that are, everybody has to have an Oscar de garage somewhere. And we have, so we need only 80%, and I get 98% of the signatures. And then that's submitted with all the paperwork and all the permits, and we have to have insurance, and that goes to their department. And that's all submitted minimum 30 days in advance, but I like to start working on the paperwork 2 months in advance, 2 months to 6 weeks, 8 to 6 weeks in advance. And we keep then about a month and a half before the event. Now we start having committee meetings. Who's doing what? Who's bringing the trash cans? Oh, we have to call also the before it was Great Western. Now we have Republic, because they donate the use of trash bins. They bring in the trash boxes. So we kind of split short. Scott Davidson does a lot of that, and I do my part. So now it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat. So after you do it to the second or third time, it's like, oh, it's repetitious. If there's a change in guidelines, if there's a change in requirements, I always call in advance. Please let me know, and I'll go on the websites and look if there's any changes and ask questions. So basically, that's it. And then we have to always have a cleanup crew. Any questions?
It really sounds wonderful. In my neighborhood, we used to do, just on my street at George Park, we used to do 4th of July.
Now your neighborhood is?
Thornton Park.
Thornton Park. Okay, I've heard about it. I've never been down here to Thornton Park on 4th of July. That usually.
We haven't done it in a long, long time. My kids were little, and now my kids are 50 and 47. So, but it was really nice, and then a lot of people out. I had some drugs, people selling drugs, people being arrested, convicted, that's just on my street. And so it makes it really difficult to, and then in a turnover of residents. So.
Is your turnover big? Because my neighbors have been there for 20, 30, 40 years. That's the key. If the majority are in single family homes and they're long-term, either homeowners or
Right.
tenants, that's going to, because I know, just blacked out party, Janelle at Henninger Park has tried for years to do events, but they have a heavy rental population.
Yes.
And it's very hard to do that. You have to, I would suggest, and I told her, well, can you imagine a Henninger Haunts? Just one little street and just a booth during the day and some front lawns decorated, but you have to have a block, the majority are homeowners that would enjoy doing that. Because when you're renting and with inflation the way it is, it can be expensive and not everybody is willing, but when you have long-term homeowners, that's different. Their finances could be different, their energies, their time. So it just depends on the level of, you have to look at how involved you want it and how expensive and how make it relatable to that group and adjust. It's like you have to adjust, because if you want to do something like that costs $7-8 grand and you have a group that's not cohesive, that's not going to work.
It gave me a really good idea because we have a neighbor and he is a Marine veteran and he recently lost his wife, but every year he builds something. He builds something like a haunted something. So maybe I should.
You can start building up that, because it only takes one very determined, very strong, in a nice way, will and energy that somebody is willing to commit and give with. Because again, my husband says this, of course, I have so much energy that I can go a long time, and my family's happy that we'll do things, because I can go on and on and on. To me, the value of doing this is that I live in I'm part of, not the only one, because there's a lot of us doing this, but we have created our little Mayberry. We're a town within a town. I live on Birch. I'm on the 1300 block of Birch. Ricky lives on the 1200 block, Carol Steele, Lisa Biss, Susanna Sandoval. Let's see who else lives on that block. Then Terry Galvan, who started the association, also is on the 1200. Mary Guzman's on the 1200. We have quite a few very well people, and then around the corner, Tim Rush, and then on Ross, we've got quite a few people that are involved. We also encourage people to take leadership. Events is the one that takes the most work, but I'm very comfortable with that. To run the association is much easier the way we have it, because it's just a monthly meetings and a topic of interest or the concern. And that is easier to run on a meeting. It's not as complex. So whoever's willing to carry the bulk of the work doesn't have to be the president. You might grow your leadership, because I've always seen it. If you want a strong neighborhood, you have to have a lot of people taking leadership. The titles are irrelevant. It is the will and the love of the community that will do it. So I encourage Karen Marks to come back. I've encouraged every single one, and sometimes I have to be a bit, I kind of put them on the spot, and like Tim Rush, okay, Tim, you're going to be president this year, and change the baton around, because you kind of start taking ownership of it. You start feel more part of it when you do, even if it's a little activity. What I have found in the events, like we're about to have movies in the square. I'm going to go to movies in the square. We don't have a park, so we have to go out the street, rent a screen, and we have little appetizers, snacks, or whatever, part of the health department allows, but we do basically the same thing. And so the kids can play up and down on the bicycle, and then we have a movie. It's always, we tested different genres of, we had like night at the museum once, so we didn't have a big turnout. But the minute we had Frozen, the minute we had Moana, and all the little ones, all you saw was this size, and the parents behind, because it brings the young parents out, and their little ones are enjoying this old time style
of activity with the friends and the neighbors. And that bonds. So if you do things for little ones, I think you'll pull out the younger parents that want that simple life, especially now after COVID. Complex life is not as appetizing, I think, that's personal, as having a little family picnic on the street with the kids and having popcorn and watching a Disney movie.
My son did that in this neighborhood, Westminster, straight down 17th Street, turns into Westminster, right before Bolsa Chica. And so he would do summer movies on his garage.
And what was the turnout?
It was good. People come over, they provide popcorn.
There's
And
something so genuine about doing things like
they
that.
just bring your chairs or sit on the ground.
Yeah, if you do that, and little fun, simple games like corn toss or things like that, you start simple. And then let the nature, because what I've been observing is every neighborhood has a different flavor and a different energy and different appetites. Like Floral Park has, Floral Park, and they're stunning. But then again, they have the architecture and the neighbors for them that are long-term, have pride, and now they just go all out because it is a lot of fun. When you start expanding like that, it is a lot of fun. So, but you start little in bringing them together and forming friendships. So movies, 4th of July thing, little, I don't know, you have to kind of be creative. An Easter egg hunt, a chili cook-off. You have the park, so you have the ability to do a little bit more. We don't, we use the street. So, but whatever fits that's simple and not overwhelming in work would be a good suggestion. Any other questions? Stop me, attention, talk to me.
Oh, well, it's nice about your, stage. There's a lot of names you mentioned there that have all time.
They're still there.
Yeah, our neighborhood was changed over. Plus, we've been getting a lot of NIES. They really don't.
If it's immigrant and first generation, they're going to be very focused because that's what I noticed from other countries. If they already are a family-focused country, the immigrant and the first generation will be that way. Now, if you have something that also represents or has a touch of their culture, that might, but the young parents who have the little kids, that's where you might get, maybe not Easter egg hunt, just a simple picnic and games. And maybe flying kites. Do they do that? Things like that. I don't know. And talk to, if you have anybody that maybe Ty, I don't know, well, Ty doesn't have children, but talk to somebody that would be able to explain and see how they see things from their side that would bring the community out. What kind of events do they have that they would enjoy that?
Every time we tie or a couple times. It seems to be the lines have it now on themselves. There's a lot of work, but 3-bedroom houses, they have big people outside.
And you can't get them involved to even ask them or to fill out a survey what would you be invested in.
I had my children went to South Mac High School, 2 of my 3. And I worked at Santa Ana High School for 30 years. So my third one came to me. We did grad night on site. And I would call all the parents and talk to them. And one parent said, we will support you by making sure that our children get good grades. Our children will not come, but we will make sure they get good grades. But, you know, some of them did come, and the outreach consultant said, I want to know, don't tell me you're going, I want to know how you can track about this. Got to go. It was on site, it was no alcohol free. And we had a band, we had prizes, and we had food, and we got people to donate. But I remember that my family said, no, the way we will support your program is our children will get they will do well. But
Yeah, that's hard.
yeah, and there's a lot of differences in culture, but you're right, find out something that would interest them. And that would be.
If you get somebody who has maybe the first generation that is starting to enjoy what America offers in this communities, can be family, and see what flavor they could add, whether it's food or, I know that in the Asian countries, I'm from the last century, okay, so sometimes my explanations will reflect that. I think they did kites, beautiful kites back then, don't they? So maybe a kite competition, something that will, that they might like, that's the only thing I can think of.
If we went to the two schools in our neighborhood, Jefferson and Pat, yeah, we would have, I know we have clearances, so that understand, but it is, it's okay. Just to let them know what we're doing, we can't use their marquees to announce anything. But I was just thinking that way the children would know, they would take them home to their parents. Well, I know what it is we're doing, we're doing meetings in correlation with the parent groups. So the parents will hear, you know, what we're doing, have a chance to talk.
It's actually our way of
It's their parent meetings, and so what we do is just give us the last half hour so we can talk about what we're doing. And it worked out real well because people didn't know that there were neighborhood associations.
And so the word association carries a different understanding. So I think you need to change the meaning of it, because the minute I said association, they're thinking HOAs from condos. I go, no, this is social. This is a party association. We use the word association because the city put it, but this is to do things together. This is just neighbors getting together to do things. And after that, now they understand it. Now that they saw the mechanics of it, and because I've been president like 4 or 5 times, off and on throughout the years. And every time I was president, they would call me thinking I had authority to do something. I go, no. What we do is all of us have our own businesses, but because we love the neighborhood and we love our neighbors, we're a conduit of information between the city, if we want to bring code or police of things that concern our neighbors as neighbors. But we have no authority to call on somebody. Now, we see something egregious, we're like you, we can call code, we can call police, we've got the app, we've got, so, and at least we can tell you which, because they have a ton of resources. So I get called on that, and then after that, people knew what the association was. That if they see the word association, go, oh no, costs, oh no, fees, oh no, and they'll back off. And volunteer, but I volunteer because I love it.
Yeah.
I have volunteeritis, I have to kind of tie my hand at the back. That didn't take, it wasn't hard for you to listen to come with it. Yeah. No, and I truly believe if we don't share our knowledge, our experience, how to do things, what was the value of doing all of that stuff for so many years? So yeah, I thought, no, we have to share it so we can grow new leadership. So it might be a different flavor, but look at the families that you do have, and if you get 15 or 20 families participating, don't get discouraged. I know that Karen or the new president sometimes get discouraged because our monthly participation is very low, unless we're putting out a fire. One time we invited Frank traffic. Oriana, because people were concerned about parking permits. And the way it phrased is like, we're having parking permits, information down here. I had 52 people show up at my house. 52, that was a record. I'm looking and I go, oh, do I have to make a flyer to have everybody show up? But it was just explaining how it works. So sometimes we have to be careful, but sometimes phrasing it cleverly can pull people out. But when it's fun things, they're awesome. And then once you do something, you might only have 4 or 5 people working, but once they see how fun it is, some parents might come back and say, hey, can I help you? Can I put it? Because we always get people helping put up the chairs and sweeping the street. And my husband has a truck, being a contractor, loading stuff up. So we do have a guest house, but it's storage. And I store a whole bunch of Wilshire things there. So I'll get a lot of help from that.
One thing I hear from experience is different.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's not the only thing that, right, that's it.
When we,
But
The dumpsters.
Dumpsters.
for the dumpster, yeah.
You'll, we haven't, we'll have to schedule it for October, but guarantee you, we'll fill three.
and the camaraderie that occurs between the people, because
Dumpster day.
Throw that away.
Grow that. on that same day, just what we started doing is we have a chalk walk. So we have chalk at the dumpsters, and then I decided to call it Dumpsters and Donuts. And I will make a pot of coffee and holes. Something simple, hey, let's do something, let's not wait till next year. Let's have a picnic, let's do, and pick their brains and see what energies they have. If you already have something that brings people out, the dumpster day, use that to build on it. Because the energy is there. If you see that camaraderie, it's there.
People already asked me, they go, when are we doing this again? So that definitely brings out people because everybody has stuff they're wanting to get rid of.
Oh, yeah. Do you guys decorate your street poles? We do that. For Christmas, we do have a, that was Paula who for many years, for 20-something years, she stored 200 plus association bought those Christmas trees. Volunteers hanging them on all posts throughout the neighborhood. You will see Wilshire Square with holiday wreaths. And so let's say you have only 5 or 6 people who want to put wreaths. So again, it's funding. And so you have a group, and then you might have some hot cider punch, hot chocolate and coffee or something. So little things can go over time. So that would be a suggestion. After that, after we do that, then the Friday before the first Sunday of December, we have a lighting competition. We call it the Walk of Lights. So there's a story to that. But everybody, whoever can, wants to decorate, and and then we have first the judges was the board, right? And I thought, no, this should be, we want to bring people out. So the first year, after that, that was my first year as president, and we did the lighting competition. I go, let's throw it out to the whole neighborhood. Let's do little ballots because we pass out the flyers anyway, and have first, second, and third of the total neighborhood and honorable mention of each street. So everybody on the street will get an honorable mention. I had 40 or 50 just people, and I had appetizer potluck at my house, and people were visiting and dropping the ballot and chatting. And my kid liked this, and the parents would drive with their cars with the kids. And I go, I like that house, and each one would put on their ballot. We didn't care. We don't have rules. I think the whole point was to have fun and bring people out. So now it's a tradition. Low riders, and I just got asked if we could have some more horses, like 15 horses from Chapa. So our parade has grown. It's inside the neighborhood a lot, and we have a cookie booth and Santa. Thank you, Tim. So we have a really fun Santa. He's good. Yes, he makes an excellent Santa. So that's how things grow. You start with little things, and you start adding and finding the people who have the energies, and all of a sudden people from other, I like this. I'm friends with so-and-so. I can have coffee because now they start waving at each other, and you start changing that. But it takes a while. It could take 2 or 3 years. Not something that happens overnight, but persistence and continuity, creating a tradition will make that happen.
One of our neighbors that just came in, she came from Arizona.
Is that
And
enough? That's enough.
Excellent.
she was celebrating a neighbor who just had a baby. So they lit their house up, either pink or blue, whatever the baby.
Oh, fun.
So she
Use an excuse to make a party and anything that can bring people together.
she lives in a little enclave, it's kind of set off, which is fewer homes, but that's what they get people out.
Thanks so much, everyone. Everyone has. That's right. Yeah. Great suggestions. So now we're going to welcome Alyssa. She'll be walking us through some of the resources that our office provides. So you can continue to reach out to us and have successful meetings, events, and so on.
Yeah, so kind of building off of what Irma was mentioning in terms of like preparing for like an event or meeting, I kind of want to go over us like specifically what our office can offer. So we can offer flyers, posters, brochures, So the size 8.5 by 11, which is like a typical paper size. And the amount we do about 500 pages per event or meeting, but we can make exceptions if you guys aren't as active, like you have like a meeting quarterly or an event like once a year. In terms of like the timing, we asked, yeah, if you guys can like prepare in advance, 1 to 3 days if you need the copies made. We have assisted with like creating the designs, so if you guys can help with the design. Say you have the information, but you don't have access to like a program to like design a flyer or a poster. We have access to Canva, so we can create like a flyer design and have you guys kind of go over it, edit it if you guys want to give your input, and as well as poster size. So we've had the Willard neighborhood actually has used the poster size. Yeah, so we have like a big plotter machine that can print out 36 by 36 poster. Because of the cost, we say to limit like 3 posters per event, and it's on white paper, and it could be colored ink. And again, if you guys can prepare in advance and allow us like 1 to 3 days to print it out, and then if you guys want us to design it like a week, we say so. So that's an option. And we also can have like trifold brochures based on the 8.5 and 11 paper. So if you guys want to like have brochures, we can create those as well. We have a department within the city of Santa Ana that creates the copies for us, so they can like hold them up and have those ready.
That's a nice idea, like for new neighbors. Isn't there, on the G7, isn't there a realtor in the neighborhood? It's not Desi, is it?
There is one on it.
Who's active?
No, not active. He's in there.
Okay, what you want, I can help you at the beginning, but it's nice to have somebody in the neighborhood that's active and lives there. Because when you live there, you're invested in knowing your neighbors. And what we have as realtors, because I feel board, you can pull out what houses have closed, and the names of the new owners, and then you can have a welcome packet and some cookies.
Yeah. So
And you can start planting seeds like that.
yeah, so the welcome packet, yeah, I printed out a set for you guys to look at. So yeah, it's like flyers of different, who do I call this, just informational material. You guys can add, for Deidre Pilar, I created one, I added their meeting flyer because they're going to be at an event this Saturday. So that'll include their meeting flyer in there. But I know that Morrison Park uses that a lot. They call us for those copies because anytime someone moves in, yeah, they go out and like give them a welcome packet.
So this is exactly what we would get if we wanted to.
Yeah, and if you wanted to add like a meeting flyer, an event flyer, I can add that into that as well. If there are any other pages.
There you go, your new neighbors. The minute a real estate sign goes up, go meet that realtor, have that in the package, find out, leave a couple of copies there, so they have the buyer gets it. And see if they'll be courteous enough to reach out to you when they close to give it to the new owner, because you don't want to give it to all the people just previewing houses, no, because that would be too expensive. But that's one way of doing it, the minute you see a house go up in your neighborhood street.
Yeah, and then on the first page for Morrison Park, I include the neighborhood association email address. So they have that, and they have their own webpage, so I include that. So yeah, so that's an option. And offer to mailers, call it a general mailer or double thirty mailer. So the general mailer is based off of like all the contacts we have in our database. So when you guys have neighborhood meetings, like the sign-in list, we enter that into the database. So that's the general mailer. So we typically do that for a neighborhood meeting. If you guys want for an event, the clear mailer is actually a larger list. You're able to pull every address within your neighborhood, so that could be sent out. But because of the cost and the size, we kind of limit each neighborhood association to do that twice a year. And then because it takes longer to generate the mailing list, and then for the envelopes, we ask that you give us at least 3 weeks to prepare that mailer. But that's an option, especially those that want to, those neighborhoods that want to restart and want to get, you know, the majority of people within the neighborhood. That's a great option too. Yeah.
Do you have a history of how your association started? Okay, you can write that up, maybe once at the beginning of the year, you know, after the year passes, and have, and pass a flyer and let everybody know how the association started and the purpose of the association and the social aspects and the friend, whatever you want to say, because sometimes people just need that introduction. Who are you? What are you? How did you start? What did you do?
The important part you said is how you such NIES association.
Yes.
It's the homeless association. It's not-
Neighbors association, because this is a neighborhood group, and we call it, and explain, and do an explanation of that. So it doesn't look formal or city, because otherwise it goes into the trash. So if we can do something to create that difference, and then eventually people will know when they see neighborhood association.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's perfect.
Also, you have a problem, bigger problem. Well, that's because they expanded to built field around us. Connectedness. So there's one lane to school north, and it goes south. That's what brought our neighborhood association together. We're successful with 2 months ago. Years ago, we did with medicine, so they probably.
Actually, stand in this neighborhood. We have big turnout.
Yeah.
We had large turnouts for a while, and then it just dwindled way down. We have large turnouts, but Mrs. Fields also donated cookies.
Oh my God, wow.
Sometimes you have to bribe people, cookies, pizza, whatever, donuts, coffee.
You're gonna do it at school.
You like your idea, don't you?
I need one of my flyers to have the weekend to do.
Yeah, we're gonna process that. We'll process it.
Activity.
We'll process it.
No, but I sent you an email last week.
All right, so moving on, other forms of communication that we can assist with, the constant contact email messaging campaigns. So I'm sure you guys receive them, where we have like a list of like neighborhood meetings, upcoming events.
Right.
Yeah, so if we get an email address, like you guys say that you guys get good participation in your dumpster day, having a sign-in sheet and having those people like, you know, write their email address. That way you get new people into the database. Because I know our database is pretty old. I know Scott mentioned it, but like getting new people in on there, so they receive those notifications will be important. So we can send those out. You guys can custom the message. We can assist with like editing. If you guys wanted to add like additional information, yeah, we can definitely do that for you guys. Another form is next door. So we have like the city agency next door. So yeah, typically we've been starting to do those more, and then we can just select a certain neighborhood and send a notification there. And then another one, voice shot. Alberta Christie's really good about doing a voice shot recording for each of her neighborhood association meetings. And she like introduces herself and she's like, "Hi, I'm Alberta Christie." So they get to hear your voice. So there's an example of like what's required. So you just do your introduction, the meeting date, start time, location, and we provide a script. I've created a script and like instructions on how to do the recording. You like have to dial a number and just record your voice. But something that's new is that we've actually started doing text messaging campaigns. So the Willard neighborhood really wanted to do that. And this last meeting, they had a great turnout. But yeah, so we can send out a text message campaign. The only thing is it's only 150 characters. So it kind of has to be short and brief. But that's another option that can be done. Yeah. And then this is the instructions for the voice shot. So it's just an example, but yeah, I think that could be another great option.
Might need that for the movies.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Let's use that for comments.
Yeah,
It was, silence.
yeah.
That's in your printed packet.
Okay.
The instructions are right there.
Yeah, so it should be there. And then you guys would just email us the number, the recording number, and then we program it. Yeah.
Oh, also, where do you have your monthly meetings or your meetings when you have?
When we were doing water meetings, we had trouble with Jefferson School and we, with them forgetting that we were coming.
Did you guys have any questions?
So, we're coordinating, now we're just trying to get back to them, but I need to and coordinate it with that school.
Yeah, because we have them in the database, and that way your contact is updated. Yeah, so just send it to us.
Or cookie or whatever, just make it simple. Some people go out loud.
We're trying to keep it minimal, but we have them, I think there's only 10, 50 people that show up, 5, 6. But it becomes personal because they're bringing to so they're comfortable. COVID made things different, so my backyard has worked, my backyard's.
Did you guys have any other questions? All right, cool. So Frank's gonna do the closing for tonight. Thank you guys for being here.
All right, so we'll just, very briefly and quickly, we're gonna go around the room. Just one point, that's new to you, or something that you'd like to apply in your neighborhood, something that you'd like to do different. So we'll start with Judy.
We had done a survey, but it was like, we need to get people to drop it off. And maybe a flyer that was a little more classy than what we came up with.
Make it festive, balloons,
Yeah,
cartoons.
something that was a little more. It's start, come to this and give us your information, not just survey. We used to have really good participation. We did pancake breakfasts, we did, but then it was so much fun. And we did, well, we still do the house decorating Christmas. But it's just the three of us are left in the association. And been since day one. And just can't get turnaround.
You get 3 or 4 more young families, because you need to pass it on to the next generation. And invite them to come or take them to another neighborhood that has, we want them to come to Wilshire Square so they can see and go, and some ideas will come. Ours is the first Saturday in October.
Starting.
I have a suggestion. Both of us. We talk films once.
Yes, that's right.
Well, we never saw. What's that? Shake. And those guys make Phil Carl says it's.
As council member, not the running part of him, but the present part, they have something for community to sponsor, and that's legit, and they can do it. That's not a bad idea.
I really like to do it. I'm surprised.
Carl, do you want to say your key takeaway?
I'm sorry.
Your key takeaway?
I like the idea of, she reminded me of what's working now and some art culture there is a big day. So I like the idea that we do this coffee. Conversation, just don't drop so long. Take that time, sometimes. You like the idea of right now. Have that. A lot of those have changed from the first one.
My takeaway was, is I'm going to try to communicate with things about we cannot just like always build something big for the holidays, you know, and see if we can work with him and maybe have, I even thought of somebody else who might have either like or try like the holograms, I don't know exactly what it is, so that they would come in and people would be like, oh, instead of having all for like Halloween, they would, it would be just like, okay, well, all these lights are out, here's one that's on, you know, the kids would be enthusiastic about it. We'll try and reach out to him through people I know him and see.
Everyone, would you like to share? anything?
Sharing information, I also picked up on the wood shop, that's a good idea to connect, the brochures on welcoming people, but again, there's just so finding what people to volunteer, but in sharing that, I found that very helpful and knowing everything you do to how to help build for others and for ourselves, so that's good.
Just very quickly, are there any topics that perhaps, you know, we haven't necessarily discussed in previous sessions, but, you know, during these last couple of weeks, something new with thinking that like as a training session.
I just thought this was good in the other session. You know, you want to get us thinking of what you do.
Right.
Yeah, it's always, what can you do? You have to see, you guys have a budget of treasury, a small amount, what you can do with that. Okay, now we've had over the years.
For formal association, it's just when a group of people started.
We're a little bit
And then
more-
we, you know, work with the city to get it. Well, we work with the city, to get, you know, sweet nuts. And it's, you know, it was originally like 8 people. Now it's down to 3.
I just like we have more papers.
Yeah.
South Coast is not represented here.
Alberta had a meeting that I
Yeah, but we did get a number of people that they tell us that they were. Oh, there were people on Zoom?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, feel free to reach out to us at any time if you want to learn more about a particular topic, and we'll definitely do our best to have that be part of our future training session. We did want to share that, you know, part of our discussion in our previous training session, social media was actually one of the topics that was suggested for us to prepare a presentation and a training. So that's something that we are working towards. And once we have a date for the next training session, a location, that's something that we're going to be looking forward to presenting on a social media training. So discussing how to do outreach events on, for example, like next door, on Facebook, and possibly Instagram as well. So you can reach pretty much anyone, you know, through those communication channels. That is it for us this evening. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate your time and your dedication to your neighborhood. So thank you all once again.
Thank you.
Is there a date set for this? Either set.
We don't have a date as of today. We will be notifying everyone through email. I'm sure we will come up with another date possibly by next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.